Brace yourself, because this truly is disturbing. Since Israel's genocide began, I've noted that in Western societies, you can say almost anything about Palestinians, no matter how hateful or violent or genocidal. Whereas if you are someone who simply objects to the Israeli state slaughtering huge numbers of innocent people, then you are liable to be labelled as a dangerous, hateful extremist, to be threatened, silenced, deplatformed, sacked, arrested, even deported. Now, I'm going to introduce you to Randy Fine. He's a 50-year-old gambling industry executive and a Trump-supporting Republican, and he just got elected to the US Congress as the US representative for the Florida's 6th congressional district. And Randy Fine has a history of the most depraved, genocidal rhetoric about Palestinians. 3 days after 7th of October, he had regards from Randy Fine inscribed on Israeli shells. As the NGO Air Wars point out, between the 7th of October and the 31st of October 2023, at least 5,139 Palestinian civilians were killed, almost certainly including the shells scrawled with his joyous greeting. As Jewish Currents noted, the weapon in question was a 155mm artillery shell, an unguided weapon loaded with TNT that burst into 2,000 metal fragments upon impact, indiscriminately killing everyone within a 160-foot radius. He posted an image of this on his Facebook page, in which he wrote, "May God rain this down in a hellfire to avenge the burned and beheaded children of Israel." Now, as we know, no Israeli children were beheaded on the 7th of October. The claim that Israeli babies were beheaded was spread in order to build acquiescence and indeed consent for a genocidal onslaught, which has in fact not only burned thousands of Palestinian children to death, but also beheaded Palestinian babies. Indeed, just yesterday, I watched footage of a Palestinian man holding the torso of a baby who had been decapitated by an Israeli strike on a clinic belonging to UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. That baby was called Amal Alian. This is her mother. At least 22 people were killed in that strike, including 10 children. Now, back to Randy Fine. He went on to post during the genocide, "There is no suffering adequate for these animals. May the streets of Gaza overflow with blood." Just imagine, by the way, someone who was Muslim was posting like this. They would be widely regarded as an ISIS-style fanatic who would probably be arrested. I mean, if a politician posted about Israelis, "There was no suffering adequate for these animals, where the streets of Israel overflow with blood," well, that wouldn't just be the end of their career. It would be an epic national scandal, and they would be arrested and very plausibly, of course, jailed. That would certainly be the end of them in any public sense. In September 2024, the Israeli Defense Forces killed Aysenur Ezgi Aigi, and a Turkish-American civilian, by shooting her in the head. The IDF later investigated itself and, true to form, gave itself a clean bill of health, stating they likely unintentionally shot her, claiming it was a ricocheted bullet, as ever, contradicted by all available evidence and eyewitness testimonies. Randy Fine posted on Twitter, let's be clear, about the killing of an American citizen by a foreign state. He said this: "Throw rocks, get shot, one less Muslim terrorist." There was no evidence, to be clear, that Aigi was throwing any rocks or stones. Indeed, an Israeli activist at the scene testified there were no rocks or stones being thrown at all. And even if she had thrown something, which she hadn't, clearly that doesn't merit extrajudicial killing unless you're a total psychopath. Now, this February, Randy Fine posted a series of depraved, hateful tweets. One of them was, "Palestinian, in quotes, equals Hamas." This is a straightforward genocidal incitement. Randy Fine is very clear that Hamas must be militarily crushed by Israel, and is making clear that he sees no distinction to be made between Palestinians as a whole and Hamas as a militant group. What does that mean? Well, it means death and destruction for all Palestinians. In another genocidal tweet, he posted, "Gaza must be destroyed." Well, clearly he's already had much of his wish granted there in practice. But what he means, surveying the already apocalyptic ruin of Gaza, is that this destruction must be total, which means, of course, mass extermination. He also posted, "The Bibas brothers were taken hostage and killed by, in quotes, Palestinian civilians." This culture is the embodiment of evil. Destroy it all. #bombs away. Notice how he puts, of course, Palestinian civilians in quotes. This is a recurring theme amongst those with a genocidal mentality in the US and Israel, which is the idea there's no such thing as a Palestinian civilian. Doesn't matter if it's a baby. Doesn't matter if it's a toddler. Doesn't matter whoever it is. An elderly woman. Doesn't matter. Doesn't count. Not a civilian. A legitimate military target. They're all, any of them, a legitimate military target. And then he says, to make it clear, this culture is the embodiment of evil, destroy it all. He's talking about Palestinian civilians. No subtlety. He's calling for the extermination of Palestinian civilians. I mean, just talking about the embodiment of evil whilst he's calling for the mass extermination of an entire group of people. I mean, this, of course, lack of self-realization is a recurring theme, of course, amongst those with genocidal mentalities. Randy Fine expanded on this further on the 21st of February 2025. He said, again in quotes, innocent Palestinian civilians took a baby and little boy hostage. They strangled them a month later and then mutilated their bodies to try and hide it. These are demons that live on earth. They deserve no state. They only deserve death. My first bill in Congress will be to recognize Gaza and Judea and Samaria as part of the state of Israel, to call for the expulsion of these monsters from Israel. For clarity, Judea and Samaria is, of course, the West Bank, which is under illegal Israeli occupation, which he advocates, of course, the annexation of, which is something which the Israeli state clearly is intent on doing, which we'll talk about. He clearly states here that Palestinian civilians are demons that live on earth who only deserve death. Now, Randy Fine has form. Back in June the 2021, a Palestinian American from Gaza replied to him with a picture of a dead Palestinian baby buried under rubble, writing, supporting killing innocent people and babies and smearing voices that fight against genocide for some AIPAC money says a lot about your character. You should be ashamed of yourself. How do you sleep at night? AIPAC, of course, is the main pro-Israel lobby in the US. These tweets are always useful to remind ourselves, as we know, that this did not begin on the 7th of October. Now, he responded quite well, actually. Thanks for the pic. I mean, what's going on in that person's head? Just a picture of a dead baby buried under rubble. And that's their response. What's going on there then? Well, I mean, it's not just him, is it? It's the fact that a man like that can rise to the top, can become a politician in the US Congress. I mean, it just goes to show genocidal mania and just genocidal mentality is completely mainstream. All of this is genocidal incitement, to be clear. Article 3 of the 1948 Genocide Convention criminalizes 5 acts. Genocide, obviously, conspiracy to commit genocide, direct and public incitement to commit genocide, attempt to commit genocide, complicity in genocide. Clearly, all of this is direct and public incitement to commit genocide. There's no subtlety about it. There's no other legal interpretation. How would Randy Fine be able to claim he isn't calling for genocide? What would his defense be against that charge? His only defense would surely be along the lines of the Palestinian people would exceptionally deserve genocide, which of course is the same mentality that any supporter of genocide has ever had. More to the point, he is in violation of US law. The US incorporated the obligations of the Genocide Convention in 1988, and under Section 1091 of Title 18, the United States Code, whoever directly and publicly incites another to commit genocide has committed a federal crime. This man, Randy Fine, just got elected to Congress. He's a US lawmaker. He had the enthusiastic support of Donald Trump, who posted, America First, Patriot. Randy Fine is running to represent the wonderful people of Florida's 6th Congressional District. A highly successful Harvard-educated businessman and greatly respected state legislature, Randy has been a tremendous voice for MAGA. He added, Randy Fine has my complete and total endorsement. Election day is this Tuesday, April 1st. Get out and vote for Randy. He will not let you down. Well, he certainly won't let you down if genocidal hatred and support for the mass murder of innocent people is your thing. Certainly not going to let you down there, is he? I mean, there you have it. You really can't say anything and everything, no matter how genocidal and hateful, about Palestinians with zero consequences. If anything, certainly, for example, within the Republican Party, it just bolsters your position. If our species has a future, which is an open question, then this genocidal mania will one day be regarded as evidence of a dark, dark period in human history. If it's normalized, then our species has no future at all, and violent barbarism will be our lot. Please like and subscribe, leave your thoughts and your comments. Good in terms of getting more and more people to hear, not least about this and what this says about where we're heading. Help us as we take on the dire pro-genocide mainstream media, patreon.com/84. Listen to us on the podcast. I'll speak to you in a bit.